Okay, welcome everybody on YouTube. We're live, and thank you for the patience. We had some technical difficulties, and we still do. I can still hear myself. I don't like it. It's okay. I'll deal with it. Thanks everybody on Discord for hanging tight with us. Anybody watching on YouTube, let us know if the audio is good, because this is kind of freaking me out. But I'll bear with it. So we are joined, David and I are joined by a new host here, and her name is Snow. And while we wait for people to raise their hand, that's how this is going to work. You're going to raise your hand if you're in the audience here on Discord, and we'll bring you up and talk about whatever is important to you or something that you would like others to believe also. But in the meantime, I just want to talk to Snow a little bit about how she discovered Street Epistemology and what she likes about it.
I hear the kickback too. It's weird. I'm gonna take it off on the YouTube channel, but give me just a second. Okay. Now I can't hear it. So I am part of a server called...
But you're echoing really bad now.
Technical difficulties.
Why is that happening? I can mute you there and unmute you here. Let's see if that works. Oh, actually, I think I know why. Never mind, let me undo what I just did. Sorry, everybody, for these difficulties here. Okay. That's gonna. I can't use the automatic. I can still hear myself. Okay, I fixed the problem. We're all good. It's not all good. Why can't I hear you, David?
You can hear me now.
I can hear you now. All right. We should be good, hopefully.
Okay. We good?
No, you're echoing really bad.
And tell us what kind of technical difficulties you experience in life.
Clearly, I'm the problem here, so I'm gonna hop out, and then I'll just hop back in. So maybe that'll fix everything.
It's on my end. Let's try now. You want to talk?
Hello? Am I echoing now?
I think it's better. Hey, Chase, is it better? Anybody on YouTube, is it better? I still have it streaming. Yes, I do.
Almost there.
Chase told me a DM, I think. A little better.
Better.
Okay, we're gonna go with
All
it.
right, let's do it.
All right. So I'm actually part of a server called Politics and Religion. And it's a pretty big server. It's got like 20,000 people in it. And I help moderate it. And I also do the partnership stuff. I was going through partnership requests, and I came across a request from Pierce, and he wanted to come do a Street Epistemology show. And basically what ended up happening is we wrote each other back a couple of times, and we set the show up. And David and Pierce both came out and did their first show in PNR. And I was hooked. Like from that moment forward, I was totally hooked on Street Epistemology. So that's kind of how I found it. And then like the love just grew as I got to know these guys more, and I watched more of their shows, and I started looking up YouTube videos on how this works and why it works. And yeah, it's like a really cool tactic that people use to talk to people. It's not debate, which is kind of nice. It's not, back and forth craziness where people get heated. And it gets to the core of like how people think. And so I really love that. Like I like learning about people and I like learning their motives and I like knowing why they feel the way they do. So it was good. That's my story.
David, are you like massaging your microphone right now?
I don't think so.
What is going on? I'm so confused. We're just gonna go with it. I don't know what that noise was. A lot of people were complaining about it. Well, at least one person. And somebody on YouTube is saying there's no echo, so good. I guess we fixed it. Beautiful. Okay, so Snow, thank you so much for telling how you learned. I can hardly talk with that echo. I'm gonna try to fix it eventually here. But if anyone does want to come up on stage and chat with David and Snow while I work on this issue, that would be great. And Chase is the taker. Chase, come on up. I love you, Chase.
Oh, I don't blame you. I'm easy to love.
What's up, Chase?
Yeah, what's up, Dave? And Snow, good to see y'all.
Hello.
And I can either just fill some time just chatting with y'all, or like maybe it'd be good if we talked about what street epistemology is again, sum it up maybe, and then I have a claim if we want to interrogate me. No, I'm just kidding. It's not. It's just an interview. It's a polite interview. This crazy street epistemology stuff. I love it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
I like the way that it's focused more on discussing how we come to know what we know versus a competition to try to out talk the other person. And to me, it feels like it's working on the same team as somebody trying to figure out something versus win by embarrassing the other one almost.
Yeah. And I feel there's room for a healthy debate every now and then, and it can be constructive, and as long as everybody's open-minded and willing to change if necessary and just good-hearted and all that, I think it can be a good thing. But this is a totally different thing than a debate, and that's cool too. Snow, what are your thoughts on street epistemology, like what it is and what it accomplishes? I know you spoke a little bit about it earlier.
I just think it gets to like the core. It helps people open up so they don't have to feel intimidated about their beliefs. It helps get to the core of the reason why they believe these things, and then maybe helps have them question that and alter it and make it better.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, I think it's good for critical thinking skills and making sure we have good reasons for believing what we believe and all that. So yeah, I guess, do we want to check in on Pierce, or should we just go on in?
I'd just like to talk so I can hear if it's fixed. It's not really fixed. I can still hear myself. But that's okay. You guys keep going. I think the YouTube feed is good, so we'll go with
That's on
that.
my feed. Apparently, according to my comment section.
Okay. Cool.
All right, Chase. What's something important to you? What do you want to talk about?
Gun violence.
What do you mean by gun violence?
Well, there's just too much of it, ain't there? And I reckon it might be in part because we got so many damn guns and such loose legislation around it and all. And so I think we might need to do something about that. I'm just not sure exactly what to do, but I guess my claim is, if I could put it into a sentence, would be that gun violence is a serious problem, and we need to, or maybe we need to take serious. How about we need serious gun reform, and maybe even ban some or all guns?
You want to try something a little different, guys? there's a fellow here on in the Discord who also wants to talk about gun violence. You guys want to bring him up and can interact with all 1, 2, 3, 4 you guys. I'll sit out.
Whatever
Sure.
works.
Yeah.
All right,
Down to clown.
I'll bring him on up. Hey, how's
Good
it going
evening.
there, buddy?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I think we got that issue fixed. I can't hear myself, so happy.
You've
the
sounded
stream is
good to me
saved.
since I've been in, so I think you're all right. You're in the clear.
Sweet.
Oh, hello,
Ah.
Dropkick.
Why, hello, dear. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. My attention immediately got it peaked because we're talking about gun violence and stuff, which is definitely something I don't get to have a conversation about much. And I like having a dialogue about it, especially since it seems Chase may be on a different perspective than I am. But I don't want to interrupt your guys' flow. Feel free to ask questions and then maybe ask me questions and see what kind of dialogue we can have going. I don't want to turn this into a debate or a back and forth or anything like that.
Cool.
Well, how do you define gun violence, Dropkick?
So for me, gun violence would be used as I would consider it to be an unlawful and unnecessary use of firearms against another individual, or actually, I won't even specify just individual, even somebody going outside their house and just popping off some shots for just, shits and gigs is going to be considered gun violence in my book, just because that could have some repercussions.
Does that definition sound in line with what you're thinking, Chase?
To some degree, yeah, I think I agreed with a lot of that. I would just add, because I'm an animal rights activist, that I would add, use, even if it's legal, I think hunting is animal cruelty, for example. So I wouldn't say it should be legal and I wouldn't condone it morally.
So that, if you don't mind me asking a question on that, Chase, as far as hunting being animal cruelty, are you aware of why, for example, like when you hear people talk about it's deer season, why there's a specific season to hunt deers exclusively, or why that's a heightened thing? Are you familiar with that at all?
Yeah, before we go down that road, because it could be a big thing, a long road that we could travel together on that one.
Absolutely
And I wonder if it might just be something we want to talk about another time, perhaps. I'm down to, but it might be a thing we need to shelve in order to address what we're generally talking about with gun violence and the gun reform, typically talking about human on human violence.
To put it a little more eloquently, we'd like to get down to the epistemology, the reason why you believe, and then maybe see why Chase has his reasons, see what your reasons are, and
Yeah, very good.
Just go from there.
Absolutely. I'm familiar with this
Go ahead.
space. I know we're all trying something different. I just want to make sure I'm always being respectful of the setting and the people putting on the show.
Yeah,
love
and
it.
for me,
Yeah.
I kind of like how we're doing it so far of, having an SEer ask you a question, you Dropkick a question, hearing your thoughts, and then hearing the SEer, come bring it back to me, and then we go back and forth like that, is working for me so far.
Absolutely. I'm open to it.
Okay. So I guess just quickly, just to kind of wrap up that, we can talk about that eventually, but about the deer hunting and whatnot, and overpopulation, invasive species, and other ways to maybe control it or prevent it from happening in the first place. But I was just kind of tacking that on as an extra to what you were saying, which I agreed with the most of, as far as the definition for gun violence being unlawful, and I guess accidental or negligent discharges. Well, I guess negligent discharges are illegal, but accidental ones are not, I would think. Right? It's just an accident.
Correct.
Yeah. And I'll also say that I'm not an expert in this issue, so but yeah. So I'm willing to learn and change my mind and stuff like that.
Can you guys hear me?
can
Yeah.
indeed.
Okay. So my question, Dropkick, is so you laid out what you thought the definition of gun violence is. I'd like to know from the opposite spectrum, like what do you think is the benefit of guns and how does that outweigh the violence that we currently experience?
So I don't think the violence that we currently experience is a product of the amount of guns or the accessibility of guns. I think it's more of there's some causality there, but I think what it ultimately comes down to is the education and the culture around guns that's seen around guns. There maintains this very divisive culture around it where if education on it, proper education around things such as firearm safety and things along those lines go, if that becomes a priority, then what you're going to see is gun violence dramatically decrease. I do think there are, to Chase's point, there are definitely some firearms that you can purchase that may not be the best option. Like I can go buy a Barrett 50 cal rifle right now. There's no reason for anybody to have a weapon that shoots that high of a caliber. So something like that, I think, should definitely be restrictive. But they're like the AR platforms that people love to kind of like call out in these types of situations. There's virtually nothing wrong with people being able to own those as long as they're educated on them properly and trained on them properly.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that you don't think it's necessarily an issue with gun violence, but more so the education around it. And if we had better education, then we may have less gun violence.
Correct.
Okay. So what about you, Chase? On the opposite token, do you think
Well,
that not having guns would help in the opposite, right? That's what I'm trying to say.
Do you guys hold the
Sure.
opposite positions? How close do you feel like you guys are right now?
Well, on that, like, I mean, I kind of agree that
Sorry
if
to cut you
we
off.
if we improved education and things like that, that would help a bunch, or to some degree. I'm not sure how much, maybe not a bunch, but it would help to some degree, probably. Given that people already have access to firearms and aren't educated on them, or, really taught responsible gun ownership, if such a thing could even exist, which it probably can, but there's just like on a mass scale, I don't know if such a thing could work. So, Snow, can you ask your question again for me? I just kind of wanted to wrap up what my thoughts were on what he had said before I go on to another.
Sure. So my question is that do you think do you believe that if we didn't have guns, I'm questioning, do you think if we don't have guns, there would be less gun violence overall? And does that outweigh like the protection aspect?
Yeah, I would think so. That well, okay, so that's kind of two questions. If you want to remind me of the second part of that question, about protection, and the balance there, but so I think that, yeah, there would be less gun violence if there were no guns. Because now there might still be illegal guns, but I would think, well, especially given that the country's already flooded with guns, and so of course there's going to be. It's not like we're starting a new country with a zero gun policy, and then some guns get snuck in or manufactured within, and but it's a small amount. Instead, in America, we're talking about having a lot of guns already, and people who don't want to give them up. So resistance could be inevitable, and that could turn really ugly. So I'm not sure how confident I am on this, or sorry, I'm still getting over a cold. Or
So
like go ahead.
the second part of that was because it kind of leads in together. But do you think that, oh man, I am having a hard time.
All good.
Do
You're
you
doing great.
think that does that outweigh the personal ownership of guns and the protection aspect that citizens would lose?
I think so. Yeah, because from my value system and from the stats that I've been seeing, it seems to be that you know, I have a document that I'll post in the chat. This is my kind of source for all this, but I haven't. It's a kind of a long document. I don't expect everybody to go through it right now, but for your research later. And it's a living document, meaning that if I need to delete some of it or add to it, I can do that. And if anybody wants to send me resources, you can do that. But a lot of having a gun can escalate a situation quickly. Like something that would normally be a fist fight now becomes a gunfight. Even if only one of the people has a gun and they're the good guy, they might be afraid that the person that's starting shit with them that wants to have a regular fist fight might get a hold of their gun if they get into a tussle or whatever tussle. So I better pull my gun on them first, and I'm right to do so, and all this, and it's like, geez, this sure escalated quickly. And on top of things of having a gun in the home seems to not be used more often in preventing home invasions, but instead be involved in domestic abuse situations where somebody's killing their partner or their children or negligent or accidental discharges where little kids get a hold of
Y'all
guns.
mind if Chase, you mind if I peel a little just go one layer deeper with you here and drop kick? It sounds, what I'm hearing from both of you guys, you're both talking about risks. You're both saying that Chase, I believe you're saying the risk of people using it in a way to harm other people who shouldn't be harmed, so to speak. And Dropkick, you're saying that there's a risk that you can take a risk to say that education should fix the problem. How do y'all come to the conclusion that that the path that you come from, that you start with, is say we should limit the potential bad things could happen, or we could try to have as much as possible and then just try to regulate it?
Go ahead, Chase. I'll let you go first.
I just spoke, so it's your turn, eh?
Fair enough. So my perspective on that is going to be based off of a couple of things, or actually two main things. One, violence is going to happen no matter what. It's mankind. As long as mankind has existed, so has violence. As far as gun violence goes, there are other countries that you can point out to that have very strict gun control laws, and as a result, don't have a whole lot of gun violence. They do still have a lot of violence, and while also still having much fewer population than the US does. So in my head, violence is always going to be a thing. Even if the government were to issue out a law tomorrow that says anybody that owns a firearm needs to turn it in, nobody's allowed to have firearms anymore, there would still be a lot of people that have firearms for a very long time after that. So with that thought, then it continues down as far as where we're going towards education, and what Sasha brought up with his point about alcoholism. I treat guns a lot like vehicles, in the sense of a vehicle can be used to cause a lot of harm to other people if used improperly or irresponsibly. So knowing how to use a firearm, knowing how to control your firearm, how to properly use it with all safety, it's just like being able to drive your vehicle safely. That's why I think one of the things that should be brought in is, just like you can get arrested for drinking and driving, definitely think you should be able to get arrested for carrying a firearm while you're intoxicated, and that would definitely help that out quite a bit. So if the violence is going to persist, people should have a right to defend themselves, but they should be properly trained and educated to do that. The thing that terrifies me is somebody that has extensive training with firearms and has grown up around them his entire life, is if a mass shooting like the one that happened less than a mile away from me happens again, there may not be somebody that knows how to control their firearm there, but there will be other people that have weapons. So now you have one shooter turning into 5 shooters, and they don't know how to use that firearm, so other people are going to get hurt.
And I think I've seen, I need to be sure of this, so I'm saying it tentatively, but I guess we could phrase it as a question, if we were to find out that, most shootings, mass shootings are stopped by non-armed citizens as opposed to armed citizens or armed security or police. Would that, change our mind at all?
I
on
mean,
that part?
it might change my mind on that specific part of the stance. However, I would definitely be intrigued to find that out because in my experience, most shootings are resolved by either the police or suicide.
And it could also be, even if it was true what I was saying, it could be only because there weren't a bunch of people who were armed. Like the people who stopped the mass shooting by tackling the guy would have used a gun if they'd had it, maybe, right? But then there's also the stray bullet problem. I've seen a lot of, cop videos of like cops trying to take out the bad guy and stray bullets taking out a little kid,
Can I ask you guys? You guys heard of the term "still man" before? Maybe like the try to give to your best understanding why the other person comes to the conclusion they come to. Can you guys try to still man each other's position so we can guess? I want to know why you think Dropkick thinks the way he does, why you think Chase thinks the way he does.
It might be a little difficult just because we're just getting to know each other and stuff and hearing each other's positions, but
Sure.
I could give it a shot. Or I could try to steel man, like the position against me in general, and try to see like what would the best from my viewpoint, if I were on that other side, what would be my best reasons for having, basically his opinions on it. But whatever.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure which I'm doing, but between those, it seems like so based on what he said, like education. I'm not sure about his reasons yet. We haven't gotten to that enough, I don't think. But it seems like a little bit. It seems like he wants people to have the right and freedom, maybe an ability to protect themselves, or to stop an assault that's happening to others, and to be able to have a tool that would be best at doing that. And he seems to recognize that there might be, unless I'm being too generous with my words, it seems that he's realizes that there's some downsides of having guns or this many type of guns and everything, that there's some drawbacks, but it's outweighed by the good stuff of the need and ability to protect yourself. And yeah. Was that okay?
Yeah,
That was fine by me. That was fine by me. There was a couple things that obviously, like he said, since he doesn't really know me too well, aren't necessarily on point, but it was a very good interpretation of my stance.
And Chase, why don't you follow that mentality? Where do you differ?
Mostly because I see the harms being caused as more of an issue that needs to be addressed rather than the need for protecting oneself with that type of weapon. I think that I used to have a bunch of guns, got rid of them. I used to carry knives. Now I just carry some pepper spray, and that ain't nothing compared to a gun, but it's not likely I would pull out pepper spray against a gun. It's more like if somebody's coming at me with a knife, well, it's a good thing I got some pepper spray, or, but blah, blah, blah. It might come in handy someday, and helps keep a distance from somebody and stuff like that. You can get out of the way and with a cloud of smoke and all. But you can often de-escalate a situation where, most robberies, they're not trying to kill you. They're trying to rob you. But if you try to defend yourself or, it can escalate the thing. It sucks. And we should, I want to be able to protect myself and I want to fight back. I have an anger problem. I like headbutting the bad guy, but sometimes we have to, restrain ourselves and not, so that's basically it.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's other there's other methods, and I would like to see an increase in technology of non-lethal weaponry, like guns that
Beanbags.
shoot giant sticky nets or something like in the cartoons, and it ties you up. And you're like, oh darn.
Chase, do you mind if I ask you a question? And if this is too personal of a question, definitely no hesitation towards turning it down. You mentioned that you have a bit of an anger problem and things along those lines. Do you feel like your apprehension towards firearms may have some kind of like internal dialogue, like knowing I've got an anger problem? I feel like if I carry a firearm, I might be too tempted to use it in one of these kinds of situations?
Yeah, either on somebody else or more likely on myself. I have a suicide problem as well, but
Understood.
yeah. And a lot of people, like if I had a gun, I probably would have used it most, likely. And a lot of time, and so it should be my right and all, and like it's my life and all that. But nevertheless, it makes it easier to do. And because I don't want to, no, you don't want to mess it up. You don't want to not be successful and then be all messed up, So anyways, we're getting dark.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't want to take up too much more of you guys' time. This was Chase's time, and I don't want to feel like I'm stealing the show or anything like that.
No.
But I know Pierce and I think Veronica have both asked for an actual claim. The claim that I have, at least in regards to gun violence, is the government should continue to try and make common sense regulations about who can own and carry a firearm. However, I also want the addition that anybody that has either a concealed or open permit to carry said firearm, just like you have to renew your license every few years, every year you have to complete an 8-hour safety training course using that firearm.
Yeah,
It's literally
stuff
just like getting your
that.
plates renewed.
Yeah, and I
That's-
like that, as good sense of more stronger gun reforms and for me as a transition process towards even stronger legislation against guns, if necessary. Because if what you're saying works super well and still provides people the ability to protect themselves, then I might be willing to budge.
Yeah, we got a lot of combat vets that need jobs. I can guarantee there would be no better firearms instructor than a combat vet.
Yeah.
So there's your workforce too. But
Any other questions? Any other questions from the SEers? I don't want to let Dropkick run off though. Don't run off. You haven't.
No,
just
absolutely
get
not.
it.
I'm open to any kind of questions or hammering down on that.
Cool.
Pierce, Snow, Pierce.
No, I think it's clear, and I actually agree with his stance. So
You find it's harder to come up with questions because you agree?
I do. If I fully agree with something, it's hard for me to. I mean, I can analyze it and try to come up with a different angle, but at the end of the day, I agree with what he's saying. So.
Are you talking about me? You agree with me?
No, I agree with Dropkick.
Oh, see, I knew it. Nobody ever agrees with me.
Dropkick, I have
sorry.
a question for you. Is there
Go ahead.
anything you could learn today that would make you relate more to Chase's perspective?
See, that's tricky for me because I have to just while trying to see things from his perspective, which I actively do. I also have to see things from my own perspective. Like I've been, just to kind of give a little bit of a rundown, spent 8 years active duty Army, deployed twice, wound up getting 3 Purple Hearts as a result. I've survived one mass shooting at a FedEx in Indiana a couple years ago where I was escorting people out the back door while the shooter was going off in the front of the area. I've seen someone, just like Chase brought up earlier and somebody else mentioned in the side chat, 2 drunk guys get into a fight. One pulled out a pistol and shot the other one about 5 feet in front of me. So I've definitely see things that for all intents and purposes would definitely push me closer towards that side. However, I still end up having a very fundamental belief in the stance that I have, just because I've seen what can happen when someone that has ill intent has a firearm and nobody else does, or the people that are around don't know how to use their firearms in that kind of situation. So
What?
it would be difficult for me to maneuver on it, but it's also not saying that I don't think that his stance is not valid, and I can't see where he's coming from on it.
So it sounds like both of you guys, perhaps both of you guys, I don't want to speak for anybody. It sounds like you've come to your stance because of this personal experience, those absolutely intense situations, obviously. And Chase might have had some other experiences that maybe he calls to. I don't know.
Well, to be clear, I do have my personal experiences, but my position is more based on this data that I looked at that I'll post again in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Hypothetically, if Chase or somebody else, maybe David, whoever, if they were to have a personal experience that was a little bit different, let's say they never had these experiences, and they
Shut my door.
they
He's trying to run all the
No.
Outsider test.
no,
yeah,
he's
I'm
trying
sorry, I
to
got.
manage
Yep.
the YouTube feed and everything. He's
Yeah.
working. He's a
I think
working
Snow
hard
muted
person.
in Discord. You guys can't hear her, but I can hear her, and the stream can hear her.
I'm sorry. I
It's
did
okay.
not know
Oh,
that.
really? Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't hear Snow.
So
It's Snow's talking.
it just threw me off completely.
Oh.
Okay. Dropkick. Let me
It's all
restart. Let's start fresh again.
Go ahead.
So, you call upon this personal experience to get to your position, it sounds like.
Well, so
Yeah,
I
no?
do want to kind of clarify on that. So
Please do.
the personal experiences more or less reinforce the things that I've researched, that I've studied, that working with people, especially like law enforcement, things along those lines, like having conversations, going out and actually, it's pretty much you have a stance, you want to be able to validate it, so you're going to go validate it or disprove it, depending on like if you're right or wrong. It's really kind of comes down to how much like work you put into it. So it's not just a matter of like I've seen and experienced these things, so thus I believe this. It's more I've seen these things happen. I've seen where the issue lies. I've had conversations with people about them, and that's kind of like ends up being the end result. Now, granted, there's going to be some kind of confirmation bias built into that, because I think everybody that has a stance on anything, when you go out to research it, you have to acknowledge that confirmation bias. Like if you're just being an honest person, you're going to have to. But
Yeah.
there are things that can back it up. I just don't want to turn everything into like a big debate stance or anything along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
cool. And Pierce, before you move on, is it okay if I just say real quick what would be cool for me is to know Dropkick's position on like we've been kind of mostly talking about it like in the US where we've already got a bunch of guns. But what if like would you have the same position if the situation was more that we were creating a new country from the ground up with new laws and deciding whether or not to allow or manufacture guns in that country? Would you have the same position or
100%.
that just okay?
Absolutely. Common sense gun laws, proper training for the citizens that are going to have that. If not for any other reason, then the Russia and Ukraine situation is kind of a good example right now. Like even for a small country, a fledgling country, that means that country is going to be under threat. And at some point, which is why the Second Amendment came into play in the first place for the U.S., the people may end up having to defend themselves against some kind of foreign force or a tyrannical government in general.
Yeah, I hear that. I know what you're saying. And it's a tough one. I guess I just hope that we can come up with better ways of dealing with our problems with others, either through nonviolence or through non-lethal violence.
I do too, but people have been killing each other over stupid stuff for a very long time, so I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately.
For sure, but I also don't want to make a nirvana fallacy where we say, we can't make the world perfect, therefore we shouldn't even try. But I know you're not saying that because you do want better regulation and reform and stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
You
sorry. Go
guys-
ahead, Pierce.
Do you guys understand each other's position better than you did, let's say, at the beginning of the conversation?
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, because I didn't know his position, but also
It's
like
true.
it's just in general, like the opposing arguments that could be made. Yeah, it's good to hear them out better, and from a different source. And him speaking as somebody who has a lot of experience with guns and with being in the military and working with the police and things like this, is a different perspective from mine, which is more from the reformed criminal aspect.
Oh, pass the bar on one of those as well. No, and I always enjoy talking to people that have as polar opposite of a perspective as I do. I mean, I'm a pagan that goes to church every Sunday, so something in it for me as far as like being around people that have different perspectives. It's always kind of good just because it either helps reinforce or at least adjust my own stance, which seems to be what SC is all about.
Yeah, and speaking to that, like what this experience has done for me, primarily, I think the main thing this has done for me is reinforce that I need to look again at my own document that I made and like further embrace the research, like look into the research is what I'm saying. Like memorize some of these stats so that I can be more sure of my position, which because I think I already interpreted the data right, but reviewing it and additional data would help me make sure that I'm right, if I'm right. And then I can spout some of those, sources and statistics to people when I'm discussing the issue.
If I could make a suggestion in that regard too, just because I'm a fan of always going to the quote unquote experts, if you get an opportunity to try and talk to somebody that actually advocates for things that I'm talking about, which I just talk about it, but there's people that actually put in work to try and pass like laws and reformations and things like that, might help you get a little bit more data that would help refute points and flesh out your research a little bit.
Cool. Thanks.
Yep.
All right. I think maybe this conversation came to a natural end here.
Mm-hmm.
So let's.
Can I throw in one more thing that I kind of think is important that needs to be touched on?
Sure.
I just want to put a reminder out there because it did get a little deep there for a second in something that someone was saying up here. If you are ever in a situation where you feel that you are not of the best mindset, please go seek help and reach out and do what you have to do because life is worth it.
Usually, yeah. I've called the suicide hotline many times, and they're very helpful, kind folks. So I recommend it.
Yep.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for coming up.
I will kick myself off before Snow has a chance to do it.
I already did it. All right, let's bring up Genesis and probably reset my disk or my OBS settings again. Genesis, what's up?
Howdy. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because in mobile, for some reason, sometimes I have issues talking on Discord. I don't know why. But,
No problem.
yeah,
I can hear you.
I wanted to talk about drug legalization. And, my take is that I think it would make the world a safer place because if you think about it, right now, right, if I wanted to buy marijuana or anybody wants to buy marijuana, we got to go to a black market where it might be laced with something. I'm not saying that weed is laced on a national scale to like a tremendous level at all, but I'm saying that the possibility of buying marijuana that is laced with another drug, a more addictive substance, is pretty, it exists in a black market. So if somebody wants to buy marijuana and somebody wants to consume it, I think that person should be able to go into a store and be able to buy something that's safe, something that's not laced with another drug. The consumer should be well aware of what they're buying. And that's the reason why I advocate for drug legalization. I think it should start with marijuana, but we should eventually work our way up, to the other drugs and give people the freedom, like, and the choice to whether or not they want to do these drugs.
I'd like to ask a question that kind of tests the limits of this belief. With regards to marijuana, so, you said you wanted to start with marijuana and then go to other drugs. Does this
Yeah.
include all other drugs or just some, or where are you at?
So my take is that if we do some, I think we're going to take away the black market. I think the market share will basically tip over to white markets in a tremendous way, where people are not going to be seeking out these other drugs because they have these other options that are legal. If we legalized marijuana, I think it would reduce the amount of people that are consuming, harder drugs. Because right now in black markets, they get. I think it's a gateway drug, like marijuana. It's a gateway drug in a black market, but in a white market, not so much, because you're not going to go into Walgreens, right? And the guy's going to be trying to sell you heroin. That's not going to happen. In a black market, on the other hand, it does happen. Your drug dealer will often try to get you addicted to a more addictive substance, to keep you going back to him. So
Okay.
I'm
With
saying
the-
some. We don't have to do all, but some drugs, yeah.
Okay. Would this include? You talked about like I think it sounds like the addictive qualities was kind of important to you. Is that what I was kind of hearing? Like you said gateway drug. Um, what? So it sounds like you were saying that if you buy it off the black market, it acts more like a gateway drug than if you were to buy it legally.
Exactly. Yeah, marijuana is a gateway drug in a black market. Well,
Okay.
actually, it's not. It's what I'm trying to say here. It's more of a gateway drug in a black
Risk of
market as
fentanyl.
opposed to the white market. Yeah, it's more of a gateway drug because people accidentally they think that they're consuming marijuana, but in reality, they might be consuming something else. And
Oh, okay.
they're
Okay.
getting addicted to something else by accident without their awareness.
I got you. I got you. Okay. So if it has another drug mixed in with it, then they might be getting addicted to that drug, not knowing it.
Yep.
Big problems there. If they were to buy it legally, it would be pure because it would be regulated by probably the FDA or something. Is that
Yep.
kind of what you're saying? Okay, we're on the same page then.
Yeah, and
Okay, cool.
also that's a possibility. And the second possibility, maybe not as common, but if you walk into this black market and you see this other drugs on the table, right? Like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm not in the mood for weed anymore. I want to see what that is. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to say here.
Hmm. Okay. Um,
Why is this belief important to you?
Well, for starters, I'm for freedom. I think that people should have the freedom to consume what they want in their bodies. And secondly, a lot of people are being impacted in a negative way because prohibition actually creates black markets, and these black markets are more deadly as opposed to us just legalizing them. I'm saying that there's more harm that's being caused by prohibition. More lives are being impacted by the result of prohibition than if we were just to legalize them. And when I say black markets, I'm talking about drug cartels. I'm talking about, things like gangs here within the United States helping the distribution of these drugs. I'm saying we could prevent a lot of violence.
Why do you think someone might disagree with you?
I think it might sound a little bit too crazy to legalize weed on a national scale. They might think that we'll become a pothead nation, and people will just be lazy and not do anything. We'll become an unproductive nation.
Well, how'd you get past that perspective? Like, what brought you here instead of there?
What do you mean? What brought me to the legalization?
Yeah, I mean, why don't you think that it'll be a pothead nation?
We have alcohol to go by. Alcohol might be an example of why we won't become a pothead nation. Alcohol is a more dangerous drug, right, than marijuana. Yeah, so we're not an alcoholic nation by any means.
Honestly, I'm not sure I understand the claim correctly. So
What do you mean?
Like, what is the basis of this claim?
What claim? I've made a lot of claims.
The original claim that you came up with.
That what do you like? It would create a safer world for everybody. What do you mean?
So all drugs or just marijuana should be legalized?
I'm saying we should start with marijuana, but some other drugs should be legalized as well.
What drugs do you think would be acceptable to be legalized and why?
Thinking about cocaine, maybe things like shrooms. I don't know about heroin. That one seems a little bit crazy, but marijuana for sure. Cocaine, shrooms, etc.
Okay. Do you think that, so you believe that we should legalize these things for the benefit of society? Because you made a couple of other claims while you were talking about this. So I just want to get down to like the brass tacks of how you feel.
Yeah, I think that the harms. I mean, sorry. I'm for harm reduction. I'm not for. Actually, I don't like drugs. I think it's. I think we should try to prevent people from consuming drugs. But I believe legalizing these drugs will, lead to harm reduction. In an overall scale, like there will be a net benefit for sure. Because we're talking about dismantling the drug cartels, ending gang violence within the United States. Those are just some examples.
My question to you would be, do you think it's possible that if this drug plus other drugs are legalized, that the government could possibly hike the price up and make it unaffordable to the people who need it for medical purposes?
Yes, the possibility exists. Yes.
Okay. And that in turn would actually be not beneficial to society, correct?
Well, at the same time, you have to. It's worth the price because if I'm a marijuana user, right, I want to be able to walk into a store and be sure that I am what I'm actually buying. That's the reason why black markets for alcohol don't exist anymore. It's because people would rather buy them at gas stations. It's more convenient, and also it's safer to do it that way. And you definitely don't want to go to some guy that makes it himself. You want to go to an actual establishment, like an actual business that does it,
Okay.
where it's regulated and it's safe to consume.
How about the aspect of like taxes that come with having the government control the marijuana flow out into society? How do you
The
feel about
taxes,
that?
it would work in a similar way. The way taxes work with alcohol.
Okay. So you think it would be a benefit as well, like an additional benefit?
As far as paying more for marijuana, yeah, it would be a benefit. I wouldn't mind paying. I wouldn't like. I think most people wouldn't mind paying. Also, the fact that it's now legal, right? Like now they could go out and buy it, and they don't have to worry about getting pulled over and or arrested or anything like that.
Do you think? I mean, so if we were to do this and we were to do it with other drugs, as you suggested, there would have to be like an incredible amount of laws put into place in order to regulate this. How do you think that would go? Do you think that would be like an easy process or a long process?
It would of course be a long process, yeah, because right now our we don't have enough. Also, our healthcare, right? At least within the United States. But we currently see drug addicts as people like with that are criminals, right? Not people that have mental health issues. No, I think a lot of people are in disagreement with that drug addiction is a mental health issue. There's a lot of people who think that it's just a choice and that they don't have that they're just doing it just because. Not a lot of people know that it's an actual mental health issue. These people should get cared for, and within the United States, our healthcare is pretty corrupt and it's pretty poor.
So that is true. As someone who studies behavioral science, there is mixed opinion about it being a mental health issue. There's actually a lot of factors that can go into this. It could be something that's genetic, predisposition. There's a ton of factors.
Well,
So
it turns out that the primary cause, one of the most common reasons why people become addicted to drugs, is due to childhood trauma and due to various traumas.
I'd like to kind of repeat back what I've heard so far, and you can tell me if I'm on the right page or not. So what I think I heard was you would like all these drugs, or many drugs. Let's just say many drugs, just to be safe here. You would like many drugs legalized because it would take away this black market that is unsafe. And because it would take away this unsafe black market, it would lead to a reduction of harm. People would get harmed less. It sounds like to me you have empathy for these people who are being harmed. You don't want these people to be harmed by these substances. And because of that, you've kind of come to, this position where you think that many of these drugs should be legalized to have a white market, a regulated market, instead of a black market.
Yeah,
did I
of
get
course.
that? Get that right? Do I have a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
understanding? Okay.
Yeah, it's a good
Terrific.
understanding. Yeah, except for one thing, a minor thing I would change is that for me, there should be a stronger emphasis with marijuana, because there's definitely people should not be getting addicted to other more addictive substances by just consuming marijuana. These people should be able to buy safe marijuana. That it's disturbing that people are having to go to these black markets and buy marijuana in that way.
Okay. But you still hold the position for some other drugs, is that correct?
At a later time, yes. Yeah.
At a later time. Okay, so
Yeah.
start with marijuana, and then after that?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Within a reasonable time, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
What would be the marker of the appropriate time to add on another substance that was potentially harder or less known about it as marijuana?
An appropriate time frame would definitely not be within 10 years. I would say within double that time, probably more like 20.
But what would be the thing that would say this is a good reason to untake another legalization?
A good reason would be if we had success with marijuana, because to be honest, I'm about 70% convinced that we would be okay after marijuana legalization, because I've heard people say, right, and this is anecdotal, but this is very important to note. I've heard people say that if marijuana was legal on a national scale, they would start consuming marijuana, even the people who don't consume marijuana. So the usage rates might increase in a way where it might make me feel uncomfortable to legalize other drugs that are more addictive than marijuana, such as cocaine and etc. It would depend on society's reactions towards how the legalization of marijuana, how they reacted to the legalization of marijuana.
If you were to find out that more people were harmed by the legalization, in some regard, I don't know how, but if you were to find out that more people were harmed because of that, then if it wasn't legalized, would you flip-flop positions? Would you not want to legalize it?
No, I wouldn't, because the reason why we have to figure out the reasons why these people are choosing to consume drugs. Often there's root causes for the reasons why people are consuming, and I think that when it's legalized, we're going to have stats. We're going to know who's buying, which communities are buying these drugs more often. That's the reason why I think that we should do it with other drugs, is because we could find out, we could know who's consuming drugs at higher rates. And now we're going to find out, right? There's this debate among BLM, where the other people, that say that white people consume drugs at similar rates to black people, but black people are arrested more often. And this would disprove that claim, or prove that claim, that if do black people consume higher rates of drugs than white people do. And we'll be able to find that out because we'll know which communities are consuming at higher rates based on sales.
And what would a higher rate of consumption do to your position? Like, why would it matter who did the most or who did the least in regards to legalization?
In terms of skin color, it wouldn't matter to me, but in terms of like a humanity level, right? I want to figure out, we have to address the reasons why people are consuming. We already know that there's a very high demand for drugs, the illicit drugs, the drugs that are coming across the border within the United States. There's one of the root causes is the opioid crisis. A lot of people get off of these painkillers, right? And they resort to doing things like heroin on black markets. That's one of the root causes for the consumption of heroin. You know, the addiction of heroin, at least the addicts who become addicted to heroin. And what I'm talking about here is getting a grasp, getting our fingertips on this issue, putting our hands into this issue, and taking over this market. If we're consuming drugs at high rates, we should be the ones that are producing it ourselves in order to figure out, in order to gather more data on who's consuming and at what rates.
Interesting.
I have a question. So if we were to find out there was a specific ethnic group that was doing more drugs over a different ethnic group, like how would you think that could be fixed by the legalization of drugs? Like, is it just for the data, or would there be a plan?
So my take, right, and my take, I don't really like talking about like ethnicity stuff, but my take is that, yeah, I think it is true. I mean, I have a suspicion that there is an ethnic group that does consume marijuana at higher rates than others, but we would be able to address things like poverty, like maybe look at the root causes for why there's high high marijuana rates or high drug rates among these communities. We would be able to look at these communities and figure out what's going on. Like, what's going on within the education system. What do their neighborhoods look like, and et cetera.
So you think, what I'm hearing is that you think marijuana use is leading to like a whole bunch of other systemic issues within a particular group of people of a different ethnicity?
The other way around. I believe that the environment is to blame for the high marijuana rates, or high usage rates among certain communities.
And you mentioned earlier that black market marijuana could potentially be laced, or you could be getting something you're not sure of, and it could lead you to worse situations. I believe you said that, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And I'm not saying that we actually, there's no stats on this, right? I tried researching this myself as far as how often is marijuana laced in the black market. It's not, there's no stats on this, but what I have been able to determine was that the only thing that professionals agree on is that there's a possibility, the possibility exists that you might be able to go into a black market and buy marijuana that's often laced. That's a possibility, but we don't know how often it happens.
Interesting. Genesis, very interesting conversation. I'd like to talk with you more about it sometime. We've got a few people lined up, and I got to keep moving with the show here. Any final questions for us, or any last statements there?
What's your guys' takes? Do you think that it's a good idea to legalize marijuana on a national scale, or do you think it's not a good idea?
I personally think legalizing it could have the benefit of the regulation and the more clarity, less to deal with cartels, all that fun stuff. And if we treat it like alcohol, I think a I could be on board.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, guys.
And thank you.
All right, we're gonna bring up. Pretty sure it's this person with the L in their name.
Lone wolf.
Hello there.
Hello.
Before we get started, what brought you into the event? What drew you in? Why'd you jump in the audience at first?
Pierce invited me.
Oh, Andrew.
Yes.
Hey.
All right, cool.
Hey.
All
you
right.
doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. So, what would you like to talk about today?
Well, I changed my mind actually, piggyback off the drug conversation about the factors of why the root cause of the poverty and the drug use among any community. I want to back off that and talk about how one of the most important factors to stop somebody from getting into that is having a father in the home.
Okay. And so that having a father in the home would reduce the likelihood of drug addiction? Is that what you're saying?
Drug addiction, poverty, just many things that plague poverty-stricken communities.
Okay. I think I
The crime.
understand.
Sorry?
I think I understand you. So,
Yeah, crime, rates of adolescents going to jail, all of it.
okay.
How
So
do you
can I
define a
ask
father? Oh, go ahead, Snow.
I just wanted to clarify the claim. So are you saying that secular families are actually what could help society as far as like drug issues? Or are you saying just like married couples?
All right. When you say secular, do you mean religious families?
Or I'm sorry, not secular, but what is the word? The conventional mother, father.
The nuclear.
Nuclear. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
Oh,
I'm so confused.
Going a different way.
Like secular. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry about that.
No, you're
No
fine.
problem.
Yeah, I would say nuclear family is the best defense against those kind of things. And it has always been the best defense against those kind of things.
How do you define a father?
I would define a father either as, if you want the dictionary definition, the biological male parent of a child, but it doesn't have to be the blood father to be a father.
So, in the way you're using it, do you mean like a male caregiver?
Yes.
Okay.
In
Cool.
conjunction with the female counterpart. Going along with the theme of the nuclear family is the best defense.
Okay. So we're kind of switching gears a little bit here or defining it a little bit better. So the nuclear family is the best way to prevent drug addiction, poverty, and crime rate.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically. Yeah, we can switch it to that.
Okay. If there was like two fathers, two male caregivers, would that be even more effective against these things or less effective?
I would say less effective.
Okay.
Like, I'm a Christian. Like, I believe the nuclear family is the best for all children. But at the same time, because I'm pro-life and I believe life consists of conception, I'd rather see a gay couple adopt a child than the child be killed in the womb. Even though I don't believe gay marriage is the best thing, or the best thing, I would rather see that child be adopted by a gay couple than be killed in the womb.
Gotcha. Could you help me understand why you think this is the case? Like, let's imagine either two male caregivers or two female caregivers, and then one female and one male caregivers. If you can compare them, what makes the nuclear family better suited to protect against drug addiction, poverty, crime rate?
Because a male and female are different, and they each bring something to the table that's uniquely to them. Like women are naturally better at caregiving, loving, those kind of things, and males are naturally better at being disciplinarians and being that strong force of I'm going to be a little hard on you to keep in mind because I don't want you to get in trouble. I don't want you to go down this path that could lead to trouble. Like the old adage in that a dad is not a friend to the kid, they're their dad first and foremost. A dad can take on the role of being more disciplinarian than a mother can because a mother is more nurturing by nature.
Is this the case for every individual, or is this something that is just generally the case?
I would say generally, there are exceptions always to the rule,
Okay.
but I would say in general, yes, that's the case
And
because modern society, most of the societies are built around this principle of the nuclear family. You go from culture to culture. That's one of the similarities between all cultures. Really, is concept of a nuclear family, or at least an extended family of blood relatives.
Loma, can I do a thought experiment with you real quick?
Yeah.
Have you met my friend 2-Day David back here? 2-Day
Probably not.
David. Yeah, he was born yesterday. He doesn't have any experiences. What's that?
Okay, this is thought apparent. This is not an actual person we're talking about.
No, this is the cardboard cutout friend that I walk around with.
Okay.
But imagine he's born yesterday and he doesn't have any experiences beforehand, and he meets three parents with each having kids, and one's a nuclear family, one has 2 males, one has 2 females, but all 3 of those families don't have have a solid financial situation. None of the children are on drugs. They're all in the same school. They have all what seemingly similar characteristics. What would David look at? What would he? How would he come to the conclusion that the nuclear family was better in that situation?
And because you're saying in this scenario, all the different types of families are all experiencing the same thing.
Yeah. So if we ran into that situation, what method would we use to differentiate?
I don't think you would run into the same situation. I think there'd be something different with each one. I don't think they all the same.
Can you give maybe some what would you look for to say that this situation is better than the other?
So like, for example, during the civil rights movement, when Black Americans were facing open, pretty heavy discrimination, the Black family was doing great. The rates of fathers in the home was at all-time high. And after the civil rights movement and into now, the rates of Black fathers not in the home has skyrocketed. And we see all these riots. We see uptick in young Black youth in jail. Something happened. The Black community was doing, in terms of many factors, doing better during that era when they were fighting for their civil rights than they are doing now when they have them.
And how do you connect the things that you're saying happen to a father would make that not the case?
Like, I was watching this thing one time in this predominantly Black school. They were having trouble with fights every day. And a group of dads got together and like, we need to do something. Otherwise, all of our kids are going to end up in jail. So these group of dads just randomly started going to the school and acting like father figures to many who maybe not had fathers at home. And fights just stopped. They did a news report about it. The fights just stopped. Because all the students realize there's a male figure in here that's going to tell it as and enforce discipline. There's going to be expectations laid upon us now.
Is
You're
it more
saying
about
go ahead, Pierce.
is it more about the expectations or more about the person being male?
I would say a little bit of both.
Okay. Can you explain the part about it the person being male versus the the expectation?
Well, I think with, like, for example, with my father, I knew there was a male role model in the house. Like, my mother didn't have to try to be the man or model something that wasn't in her nature. There was a male father figure in the house that I could look up to and see how a male should act.
Is
And
there
then I also
So
Go ahead.
the behavior. So if the way that a man should act, the word you said there was filled within a role in a different situation, could the child still have the same benefit?
I would say not necessarily. Because again, I believe male and females are naturally wired for different things. They have naturally different tendencies. Going back to a woman is naturally typically more nurturing and a male is not. Like, we always have the joke with same sex couple marriages and people of who's the woman in the relationship, who's the man in the relationship.
Interesting.
Hmm.
And
We need to like
I
have like
I have a-
4 hours to this show.
I actually have a question. So in the scenario that you posed with the school, right, and you said that the fathers were able to make it so the kids no longer fought anymore.
they were able to rein in the kids the most, especially the young males. They were able to direct that male energy that can often lead to males doing destructive things into more non-destructive things.
Okay, so in that scenario, were there any kind of differences or consequences that may have happened having the dads take charge of this and not having the mothers involved? I'm just kind of curious.
No, it was all the fathers. The mothers weren't going into the school.
If you saw a news story about a group of mothers who came in and made law and order happen, would that hold the same amount of evidence for you?
I think it would be an outlier, like that during the recent summer riots. I don't know if you guys saw that mom that pulled her kid out of the riots and was smacking him on live television, throwing down with him because she didn't want him to get hurt or arrested. That was an outlier because she was a single mom and she was fulfilling a role that would normally be filled by a male, being the laying down the law and being very opposite of nurturing because she was basically whooping his butt. So there's outliers. There's moms that can do it, but I don't think that's their natural tendency. I think a male is better suited because he can more naturally do that without having to go against per se his nature. Like the old joke about the dad look, where a dad can just look at a kid and not say anything, and the kid will straighten right away because he recognizes that look of, if I don't straighten up, my dad's going to do something.
So other than the situation that you were talking about with the school, have you looked into any other statistics that would back this claim up of the nuclear family?
Yeah, like I mentioned how during the civil rights movement, the black family was really intact. And now it's taken such a beating that it's collapsed. I mean, we all see the high rates of black youth in jails. We see the poverty because of all the social welfare, the mother now is relying on the government instead of the man. The man is freed from the responsibility to provide for the family in a way because she can just jump on the government's payroll and the taxpayer payroll.
Is there any alternate explanations to why this might be occurring other than just because she's not a male?
I would say, yeah, there are other, but I think this is the root cause. Like all the other things lead back to this.
I understand that's your position. I'm just wondering if there are any other possible alternatives that it could be for this one particular scenario.
Which scenario?
The one with, I guess, historically, you said that Black families were doing really well when the vast majority were living in a nuclear family. And then I think you said time went on and that maybe that the percentage went down and there was more, perhaps more crime or addiction or something along those lines. And I'm just wondering if there is an alternate solution or not solution, alternate explanation to why this is the case.
Or could be the case.
Like I said, I think you can point to other things, but if you trace
What are those
back
other things?
where you live, for example, I do believe if you live in a city, you're gonna have a way different experience than you would living out of the country. You're gonna face different struggles.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
But again, say that struggle can be mediated and be less impactful in the harm sense if you have a nuclear family to prop you up.
Okay.
Like basically the nuclear family is the best defense against all these other things.
If you came across some statistics that says something like a more mixed family or something like multiple generations or a polygamous even family raised better results for whatever statistic you're looking for, could you come across a statistic that would change your mind on that?
No, because I don't think you would. If I did, I would say they're skewed or they've been figgled.
So what marker would give you a different perspective? Like, I mean, not to say that there is a marker, but I'm saying, is there something that you'd say, okay, maybe I need to reevaluate?
No, because when I look back at history, I see the same theme throughout different cultures. No matter where you go, there was ideal that this is what is best for society, this nuclear family. And though it's not achieved all the time and not everyone achieves it, this is what we still strive for as a whole.
Can you give us an example of like another culture that fits this criteria?
Just general. I can think of, I don't know how specific you want me to go. I just know in general, that's what you see across cultures is emphasis on a nuclear family, or like I said, an extended blood family where like the relatives live with you, the mom and dad lives with you for the rest of your life. Once they get old, the families take care of each other down the line of the older generation.
Well, I would definitely agree with you that I think that it is important that we respect our elders and we utilize our family systems to raise the best children possible.
Yeah, that's what I'm basically saying. The nuclear family is the best suited to do that.
Sure, that's something for me to think about. I'd like to chat with you again sometime next week if we can, or one of these coming up weeks when we do this. It sounds like we have a lot of things that I'd like to explore more with you. But at this point, I think I got to get some of these other people. We got to switch over to some of these people to fit them in before we end the show here. Is there any questions you have for us?
No, not at all.
Awesome. Appreciate you coming on.
You're welcome anytime.
Yeah.
I'll tune in next week.
Whoop.
Thank you.
I thought he was done speaking. Sorry about that. I cut you off. Did not mean to do that. All right. I think Some Hobo was next. That is what Taylor told me. Throwing him under the bus if that wasn't the case. Hey, what's up, man?
Not a lot. How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty
Good.
good. You
Yeah,
are
we just-
maxed out for my volume. Is it possible for you to get closer to your mic, maybe?
How's that?
About the same.
I'm gonna change my settings real quick.
Oh, I can actually change mine a little bit more too. I can bounce you up a little bit there.
How's that?
I mean, it
How's
will
that?
work. It's still pretty soft, though.
Wait, I think I might have clicked the wrong one. There's this better.
Oh, yeah, that's so good.
Okay.
It's breaking everything. It's so good. Okay, proceed.
So yeah, I guess I believe in free will. That's my claim.
Free will.
I like it. Tell me more.
Well, the main reason I didn't really believe it until a couple of years ago. But one of the reasons I believe in free will is because I used to be an alcoholic and I drank at least 6 days a week, wake up and drink type stuff. And now I've only drank 3 times this year. And I believe one of the reasons I was able to do it was because of free will.
Well, let's celebrate that. Sounds like you put
Yeah.
your mind to something and you did it.
Thanks,
That's
guys.
amazing. I'm genuine about that. I was not sarcastic or anything.
Yeah, that's
Came
tough.
across
Yeah.
that.
Dwight, out of curiosity, do you guys believe in free will?
I don't really hold a position on that. I don't care, as bad as that sounds. It's just like I wouldn't do anything differently if I held one position or the other. I don't care.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how do you?
Go ahead.
I'm
Son.
sorry. Go ahead. No, David, you go.
I believe in pseudo free will that just dominoes, but we get to experience it.
Yeah. I see what you mean. I think, yeah. What'd you say, Snow? Do you believe in free will?
I'm not 100% sure. I put some thought into this, though. I think I kind of hold the same opinion of Pierce on this one, that I don't think my life would be any different whether we did have free will or didn't. So
Yeah.
how do you think your life would be different?
Well, I could still be an alcoholic. I wouldn't care about life as much. If I had an impulse, I'd just do that but because I believe in free will, I take more time to think about my decisions.
So you think that you were predestined to be an alcoholic and you would have continued being an alcoholic if you did not have free will?
I don't know about predestined, but alcohol definitely has you start to feel like you need it. And then, yeah, I don't think God was sitting there like Jonathan's going to be an alcoholic in his 20s, but I think. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I'm sure. I don't think I was predestined to be an alcoholic, even though I still believe in destiny. But I believe that we could choose to be, to pick up our destiny and do that.
I know you talked a little bit about your how you overcame alcoholism. I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah.
Hopefully, okay. And I think that's great. Just so you know, I'm throwing that out there again. But this idea of free will, how did you come to this conclusion?
I was definitely struggling with it. I saw it as like the domino thing, cause and effect. And I would have said, let's say we had this incredibly huge computer that was as big as the universe. I would have said from the Big Bang, it would have been able to predict this moment. But one of my friends said to me that atoms don't always split the same way. So, he would say because of that, an infinitely powerful computer would not be able to predict this moment because atoms don't always split the same.
Okay.
And when I
Go ahead, Pierce. Or whoever it was.
Yeah, Pierce, go ahead.
Yeah, I hear you. So atoms sometimes do different things, and it's like unpredictable. Let's go with that assumption. I have no idea if that's the case, but let's assume that is the case. How does that relate to free will?
Well, if inanimate objects aren't always predictable because atoms don't always split the same, then perhaps in humans and maybe even in animals, we may say all this up here is just hormones or chemical reactions. I think that we have the ability to even I know it seems like a stretch from the atoms to what goes on in our brain, but I guess once I realized atoms don't always split the same, not everything's domino. There's domino, but there's not all of it's domino. And
So you're saying anything is possible, right?
I mean, to a point, yeah.
Okay.
I guess, yeah, with the atoms, when atoms split, this don't always split the same anymore. There's more possibilities.
If somebody can demonstrate to you to reasonable satisfaction that there was a trackableness to the atoms and everything was still in the domino chain, would that change would there be another reason for you to be holding this position?
Yeah, if we could prove that everything in the universe is trackable and atoms are trackable, I would reconsider. But from what I see of like quantum physics, when we get below the proton, how quarks don't always act as particle, sometimes act as particles, sometimes act as waves. And even with quantum,
I got a superconductor right here. Watch. Predictable. Gotcha. How's your life different now?
Then, well, that would throw me for a loop. If it's automatically, if everything's predictable, if we had a computer predicting my every action, I would doubt free will.
Go ahead, Snow.
Does this overlay with like a religious aspect at all? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, when I started believing in God 2 years ago, within like 3 or 4 months, I started believing in free will. And around that same time is when I stopped drinking alcohol. Or, well, I think I went like 8 months without it, and now I can drink it without fear of being addicted again. But yeah, it's right with my religious beliefs.
Hmm.
So is it possible? Okay, so okay, I'm trying to break this down, right? So basically, you believe that the religious beliefs led you to God, which then in turn led you to the aspect of free will, which then in turn helped you with your alcohol addiction.
Yeah, or I guess I started believing in God, which led to me having religious beliefs. And then, yeah, religious beliefs led to me believing in free will around the same time I was quitting alcohol. If I didn't believe in free will, there's a chance I may still be an alcoholic.
There's a chance that you wouldn't either, though, right?
I mean, possibly. I mean, maybe I could have convinced that I don't have control of myself, and whatever part of me is making me quit alcohol.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I guess if we were to say free will's not real, I would say that all we are is impulses. And alcohol definitely becomes an impulse. And I don't think quitting alcohol is necessarily an impulse until you make it a habit. And in order to make it to a habit, you have to overcome impulses.
Did you have any other aspects in your life that could have possibly affected your drinking at that point in time, other than like finding God and then now having this belief of free will?
Well, I mean, drinking alcohol doesn't feel good, like when you're doing it too much.
Could there have been any other contributors that maybe helped you quit your addiction?
Well,
Like
family and friends help, but I normally would ask them for prayers. So other people who also believed in God contributed.
okay, so it's like a system, like a network, and you feel like it
Yeah.
all built up.
Yep.
And then
What
what
if they
felt
wouldn't?
different? Oh, I'm sorry, Snow.
No,
Go
go
excited.
ahead. I could go and go and go. So go ahead, take it over, David.
I like to hear you go and go. Go for it. Let's hear it.
I can't remember what I was going to ask.
Oh,
I'm
no.
sorry. Go ahead.
I get overexcited. Okay, so you felt you had free will. You felt like you had the power to make a choice to do something different. Why did you choose to do something different?
And are we talking specifically about alcohol? Or
Yeah, or
okay,
whatever you want to say with it. Whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, well, I was drinking alcohol because I felt like I used to see being smart as a curse, and I felt like being drunk made it easier to be in the world. And I'm sorry, can you ask the question one more time?
Sure. So you had the experiences. You felt that you had free will, and then you had a choice to make a choice to stop. What led you to make that choice?
Yeah, it was. So yeah, I saw the world as like I can only really cope with it being drunk. But because I believed in God, I believed I'm supposed to be more than just drunk. Yeah. And as far as other things, I'm into hobbies, and
Yeah.
You know, you have to be self-motivated to get hobbies. So it's like every day making the choice to practice something. So now I'm spending time with these hobbies instead of being drunk and playing video games. I guess ultimately we could say to better myself, even though that sometimes wording it that way has connotations that don't necessarily mean. It's not like I'm superior to what I was before, but I guess I'm healthier maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's incredible. And I think you
Absolutely.
should give yourself a lot of credit because people struggle with addiction every day and alcohol. I actually just recently went through an addiction course for behavioral science, and alcohol is, they say, the hardest drug to kick because of the side effects that it comes with. So, bravo to you, friend. And
Wait, oh, even more than meth? It's
it
harder
is
than meth?
it is the
It's very
hardest.
available.
Yeah, and they say that most people, like if you're, not to like steer us off course, but most people who actually are addicted to alcohol need intervention in order to quit. Um, it's pretty nasty. So you have succeeded at something that a lot of people have a hard time doing.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. Thank you.
And this conversation is super fun to me, like, because it's we're peeling back some of the process of uh, the getting past the addiction, but like what kind of thought process has come in to the building a life outside of that. So whether somebody believes or doesn't believe in God, or whether they believe or don't believe in free will, we can all relate to the kind of things you're saying. We can all hear this, the parts about the wanting to function in the world, to wanting to have better connections, to wanting to have better hobbies, to have to enjoy more things, and so I really appreciate you sharing what you're saying.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I guess just to drive the nail home, like I even think our free will can possibly grow. Because, for instance, sometimes I walk through the kitchen and I might see some candy, and before I even realize it, it's in my mouth. But with things like meditation or paying attention or staying focused when I go through the kitchen, I suddenly gain the ability to decide if I'm going to eat it or not, rather than just letting my body just put it in my mouth.
That's some next level experience stuff right there, and I think there's a lot of different religious practices and even like secular practices all around the world that are about the awareness and about the being present and understanding the impulse feeling and reacting to the switching off autopilot and being present in that moment. And I think you're. I once heard this one guru type guy person talking about how if like you try to sit in silence for about 5 minutes, and after a while, if you try not to move and barely breathe and sit in silence for like 5 minutes, after a while, everything feels super intense. Like you just want to move, you want to think, every noise is extra noise. You just feel like I can't just sit still any longer. And that intensity of being present is apparently the amount of experience we can have in everyday life if we're paying attention, according to the mystical guru Nirvana speech. I think it's what kind of like what Chase said earlier. It's like it's unlikely that we could reach that kind of what Nirvana or whatever. But I mean, I think it's a good kind of goal, a good kind of North Star, so to speak.
Yeah. One thing I tell folks who are new to meditation is if they have like a walking trail or somewhere nearby with like a bench, that's the best place to meditate, because when you become more present, you become more in tune with your senses, and everything looks more beautiful. All the nature looks way more beautiful when you're more, because you're able to, I feel like if I'm spending 10, 20 minutes and I'm really focused on staying present, the colors just look brighter.
That's neat stuff.
yeah, there because I try to look at meditation really pragmatically of just gaining focus, becoming in tune with the senses, gaining self-control.
Yeah.
Even though there might be the nirvana stuff too.
Sure. I get it. And I think I went on a little bit of a tangent there. I appreciate everybody hear me out on that. Man, I'm real happy you shared your experiences with us.
Likewise, thank you guys.
Bobo.
Thanks for
Absolutely.
choosing us today under free will.
Likewise, thanks for choosing to do this show.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Well, I guess I'll see you guys later.
See ya. Thanks for coming up. Greatly appreciate it. All right, we'll try to get to the last two callers. We'll have to make it quick conversations. I believe this individual was next.
No, it's
Hello?
okay. Hello, I can make it fast. Don't worry, I can make it real fast. Okay. I
Okay.
just want to say, first off and foremost, David, huge fan, man. Been tuning in for a long time, man. I love these streams, man. Okay, you cool. Love you, man. I love what you're doing with this thing. You too, Pierce. Hey, Pierce. Let's not forget about you, man. I love you too, man. Snow,
Appreciate
you too. Hey, I know I haven't I'm sorry, I haven't really seen you that much. I feel like I don't know if you've been here, but I think I really liked what I've seen on the street today. I think you're really good at articulating your points there, and I love to see it, man. I love to see it.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. Okay, so let me start off first and foremost. Okay, this question is religious. Okay, this is a religious-based question. Okay, so you do know about the the earthquakes in New York? Yes, that happened today or yesterday or somewhere. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
I saw one meme about it today. I've not
Yes,
seen the news. I've not
So
seen the news.
basically, what I've came here to talk about today, folks, is the earthquakes and how they're affecting important things in New York, like perchance maybe the New York Knicks Basketball Association. Okay, now I know this sounds crazy, but hear me out. Jalen Brunson, player for the New York Knicks Basketball Association, he's been putting up numbers, game in and game out. And I just feel like all this bouncing is going to shake up his equilibrium and throw us off the game. And, what I'm really segueing into here is when you're playing bad at basketball, it's really just like segueing into hard drugs and alcohol and getting addicted to these sort of things. So really what I'm trying to say is do you think the failure in the basketball league is what causes many of these washed up athletes to get into alcohol and drugs and become addicted to such things?
That was a lot of claims, friend. That was a lot. You took us on a roller coaster ride there.
You get my point though. Yeah, you get my point. It's okay if you don't. I can restate it if you like. I try to get through it quick because you said this was we didn't get through this fast. So you know what I'm saying.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem, David.
The question of the show, obviously, why is this important to you? What is important to you here on this?
I'm a big time Jalen Brunson fan, and I just feel like the direction that young man's going in is not looking good. And it's very important to me. I love to see young men strive on the court. That's why it's important.
And
Yeah, I got nothing. Sports aren't my thing.
well, I'm just trying to understand. So a person has a lot of money, a lot of opportunities, lots of
Money for drugs,
easy
yes.
access to.
Oh, easy access to drugs. Yeah, very easy, very easy.
Yeah.
I
Now,
can.
remind me again of the question of it.
So basically, the question is New York Knicks, Jason Brunson, player on the New York Knicks. Basically, what I'm saying here is that I think these earthquakes in New York are going to affect his game, and they're going to cause him to go into kind of a downward spiral here, and he's going to get into drugs and alcohol. And I just don't want to see that for him. Just what's happening to all these players. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and how do we know that the earthquake is specifically what's affecting him?
Well, you don't even get me started on Jalen Brunson, man. Okay, so this man, I'm not trying to get weirded here, but this man has no jump. Jalen Brunson is a earthbound soul. If you know, that man can't jump for anything, and I think just all this throwing, it's already gonna make out worse. You know, he's not gonna jump in. He's a little 3-point feed. So I'm thinking this earthquake's just gonna make it even worse for him, and his points are just gonna go down even more. And I want to see that for him. I want to see that young man strive for greatness. You know what I'm saying, David and Pierce?
What's he
and
need to
Snow?
do? What?
Well, that's my question for you today, David, Pierce, and Snow. I just want to know what you think he should do, and then I'll give my take on it.
I think that he needs to meet Alan the alien. I think Alan
Okay,
could give him a
Pierce.
really good.
Pierce,
Pep
I'm
talk.
not joking. Pierce, I'm not joking, man. This isn't a joke,
No?
man. I'm serious.
I think he
joking
needs to
around
go
here.
get he needs to go get a physical and make sure that
No.
he's in top athletic shape, and then he'll go
Thank you.
ahead and continue on. that
Thank
way.
you, Snow. Thank you.
I got you,
Thank-
Boo.
Oh, thank you, Boo. Thank you.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
David, I feel like I've got an answer from Snow. I've kind of got a little one half answer from Pierce. I'm not accepting that, by the way, Pierce. I'm not accepting that little joke on my serious topic. David, I would love to hear your take on this.
I'm gonna make a T-shirt for Today David next week. I think he should buy like 20 of them,
David,
and
David,
it'll make it more aerodynamic.
David, don't do this to me right now, man. David, I love your show, man. You're peeving me right now, David. You're supposed to answer my question, man. I can't believe you're doing this on your own
Alright.
show, man.
He's gonna have to go on the what's the diet where you bust out carbs.
Oh, are you talking
Beach.
about you're talking about a flipitarian diet, yeah? Flipitarian diet.
That's what do it.
Yes,
That's my advice.
No, you know what? I'll accept that, David. I like that. I like that. That's really all I had to say. David, I love what you're doing with your hair. I just wanted to say that it's a great look for you, man. Pierce, I think you should grow your hair out. Maybe get curtain bangs. Maybe that. Not saying you are looking. Not saying it's not the right haircut. I'm just saying it's just a suggestion. Snow, you've been very kind to me, and I think your hair, whatever hair you can't see you, but I think your hair's your hair's probably really good. No takes on that. That's all I had to say. Thank you. Bush did 9/11. Thank you.
Oh, and
That was
Bush.
that was fun.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I learned a lot about the earthquake.
I think the
Okay.
person who was next
Oh,
put their hand down. I'm going to
yeah, some
invite them
random.
anyway. And if they don't want to come up anymore, that's okay. 'Cause we have another person. But we may not get to that person.
This has been so fun. I'm so happy I did this with you guys.
Yeah.
All right. This will be the last caller. Only person with their hand up.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey,
Hey, I mean, I've never been on one of these before, but
welcome.
you know, it's my first time seeing this. I'm assuming the person who comes up has a question or something, right? That becomes a topic of discussion.
Yeah, we're asking
make
what's
a
important to
claim.
you.
All right. Well, you know, since the last guy was talking about drugs, right, and you know, with my name and all, I thought it was only appropriate to talk about maybe you know, a drug-related topic that came to my mind, right? Was some of the things with like you know, when we see in Canada, right? I forget which city exactly where they legalize all types of drugs, right? Where they just kind of allow people to do them, right? And with that topic, I was thinking, what's the right decision for us? Like, what should we do for people who are, you know, hooked on drugs and you know, are really addicted, like, you know, places like Skid Row, right, where they're all over the streets. Should we do something kind of like you know, should we just allow them to continue to abuse these drugs, right, with their free will and, you know, their liberties, and just allow them to, you know, choose their life on that way? Or should we do something like what the Taliban do, right, try to round them all up and put them in you know, some type of rehabs, right, try to get them, you know, back in society? What should be our take on that? What should we do situations like that?
I kind of want to know what your answer is. What do you think we should do?
You know, for me, I was kind of thinking like, you know, thinking back like the quotes of Hippocrates, right? Well, you know, famous doctor, historical doctor, right? And one of the questions he asked, right, is, or one of his quotes, I forget which one exactly, is that, for you to truly heal a man, you have to ask him if he's willing to give up the things that are giving him the disease, right? Or the things that are truly hurting him, right? But I also feel as if, if we try to really group these people up, it's kind of encroaching on their liberties and their free will, right? And, we learn from, childhood that our actions have consequences, right? And if we keep having safety nets for people, right, and they keep going back to these things and, keep abusing these things, and we keep trying to give them a safety net, at some point, right, we've learned for a reason that our consequences have actions, because at some points, maybe, we do damage to our bodies and stuff at a point where, there's not really much saving, right? Which is, sad things, to say, but I think we should, of course, as we are right now, very anti-drug, right? You learn in schools, drugs are bad, right? But I think the best thing we can do is just avoid getting to that situation. But after that, I think it's, up to them. There's not much, we can really do when they get to that point like they are now. Kind of letting them, in their own way, abuse that substance, I guess, because they don't want to also encroach on their, liberties, if that makes sense.
So
If they're not...
do you think that causes like a vicious cycle of it just repeating over and over and over again?
Well, like I said, right now, like in schools, we're learned that, drugs are bad. And I think, the best thing we can do is just continue to educate on that, right? And at some point, try to, help them. But, a lot of these people that, keep falling back into, like I said, like that safety net, we can't continue to, have that because, once you commit, you can teach someone, not to murder someone, their whole lives. But once they commit that act, they have to learn that their actions have consequences, right? And I feel as if once they get to that point, there's not really much we should be able to do or should do,
If we were to find somebody who had a counter type of mindset as you, like on the opposite end, what do you think leads them to that conclusion, and why don't you follow that?
Because I think a counter argument could probably be like, there's still, people and stuff in their life has value, right? We should, of course, still try to help them. And, I'm not saying their lives don't have value, right? But what I do value is, their choice, right? Their personal choice, living their own life, right? And most of these people who are, are doing these drugs and such know that they're bad, right? But how much of our own, resources and our own, as individuals can we, expend on others? Like I think in the beginning, right, we can do as much as we can to avoid them to getting to these certain points, right? But I think overall, I kind of value their individual choice over kind of, some authoritarian, like, decision by someone else on, their behalf, if that makes sense.
Can you think of other areas maybe that that autonomy is not respected in the same way, but you may support?
Where autonomy isn't respected? Could you like elaborate on that question?
I cannot. Somebody else say something because my brain fried on that one. Sorry about that.
I'm just
I
trying
need
to
a second to think. No, I understand. I need a second to think, basically.
Because this is just a topic that came right to my head too. I just wanted to see, what other opinions were on it. Because I'm open, to change, but that's just what I think now. I value, personal liberties, one's choice and one's control over their own life, right, to the fullest extent.
To the point where, I'm sorry, go ahead, Pierce. You go.
What could someone say, like either David, Snow, or myself, what could we possibly say that could get you to reconsider your position?
I, perhaps, somehow, I think now that I think, like, if, you were able to show me that, one's, life in a sense is worth more than, the liberty they lived in that life, right? That you could show me that um, kind of, human life is probably more valuable even if they don't have, the choice to live that life on completely within their own reins, with the reins being fully in their hands, if that makes sense. And that's just assuming that my belief, right, of them, completely, like, continuing to abuse is them holding their life within their reins, right?
Gotcha. Where, in your opinion, this worth, like, what is it and where does it come from?
I think humans are born with that worth, right? I think people are born with respect and such, and born with that worth, and I think they're also born with the innate liberty to choose how they want to live their life, right? And I think if there was a child that was born, and I could teach him till he was of age that drugs are bad, drugs are bad, drugs are bad, don't do alcohol, drugs are bad, and after that he continues to abuse it, and he comes to me for help, I will help him, right? But if he doesn't, then that's of his own, choice. And I feel like, I'd have to. I don't think I have any place to, pull him out of the street and force him into rehab or something, and then attempt to mend his ways if he doesn't want it, or if he's not seeking help, and he wants to continue to go on that path, even if they do know it's damaging them.
I think I understand where you're coming from. I'm wondering if.
So,
Go ahead, Snow.
so if I understand this correctly, you're saying you just don't like the government interference within it.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it, right? I'm not too big on government interference within people's personal lives, but also I don't think this big idea of like the mob, or like a bunch of people coming in saying, hey, you shouldn't be living your life this way. I think the individual, I mean, it seems as if he's only harming himself, right? But if the individual truly wants to do that, then I don't think we should,
Do you think he does?
Does what?
Do you think that there's like a situation where someone does really truly just want to harm themselves, and there's not like other extenuating circumstances that make it impossible for them to change their life?
I think that when it comes to the situation, I think, of course, right, there are people can turn around and change their lives, but I don't think it's another person's place to kind of force them into that, right?
What if they have some sort of like mental illness that is preventing them because they're not on the right medication? Should we just let them continue to harm themselves and not have government interfere with that?
I think that could be, depending on, exactly which, like if they have, severe like schizophrenia or something, and they have like some mental issue, that's kind of, I think, changing their, viewpoint of the world and stuff, that it's going to that point. I think, of course, I think there should be, government interference with that, help in that situation, because
So
they're
then-
not probably, choosing their own liberties at their full capacity.
So then how do you determine the people who are out there under the assumption that they're harming themselves based on the fact that they just want to do drugs and live this wild life, versus the people who have mental illness, who are incapable of making correct decisions because they don't have the capacity to do so? Like, how do we define those different people in a group of people that are struggling with this?
I think because we have to, of course, recognize that early on. Like my thing here is that we try to, recognize these things in the beginning, because I mean, after that, I mean, I think it's really hard to do, go on the streets and, try to, call them all in one by one. But I think at the, beginning, we try to educate, and, of course, within that time, you're learning, these, kids are a little different, right? Blah, blah, blah. And they already start receiving, differently, they get into different, government programs and such. But I think after, a certain point, adulthood, we kind of understand, who's in what situation. I think, people with medical conditions are, of course, like a different, category in that sense, because they're already receiving like a different type of, perhaps like, government, help. Right?
Is it just the financial aspect that you have a problem with, or is it like the social aspect?
My thing is kind of like maybe perhaps more social, because if we're looking at a fully capable individual, right, who went through education, understands what he's doing, and still is doing something like that, I think that's when we gotta truly understand that it's their free will and they understand what they're doing, and that's when we kind of just gotta let them do that. Because I'd like to ask, is it like, what alternative would you see if you saw, I asked this question, maybe all three of you, right? If you saw someone on the street, right, and it's, he has a story, fully capable guy, and I mean, I've seen a lot of video. I think, one person I could talk about is like maybe person I've seen recently is like Tyler Oliveira, right? Who's a lot of these YouTubers, they go to these places, right, Skid Row and stuff. They do interviews with these people, right? And you kind of get like an insight on that. And one of the person he goes with is someone who actively tries to go out, talk to them, and help them. And I have nothing against that. I have nothing against people doing like this outreach, right, and trying to go and see if they want help. But when you see a lot of these guys talking, some of them don't really want it. Some of them want to continue to abuse, right? So I'd ask, is there a point where we just have to start snatching them up? Because my viewpoint is that once they've decided that and told you that, right, I think there's nothing we can forcefully do, right? But what would you guys suggest in that scenario?
You guys want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. I think that every individual person who deals and struggles with any kind of alcohol or drug addiction has the hope of being saved. I think that if we had better medical aspects in the United States, we could be helping way more of these people. And I don't look at the person who, is in a really like a shitty situation and maybe just chooses to want to continue to do drugs, even though I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it's an addiction. And so there's aspects of this that you can't control. I look at someone like the wounded vet that came back from duty and is now homeless on the street and turns to drugs because he's dealing with PTSD and a whole bunch of other issues. And someone like that they deserve humanity. They deserve a chance, and they deserve better than what we're giving them. And so if we were to amp up our medical systems, we could probably help those people and a whole bunch of others. That would be my suggestion. I would say more government interference would be better.
I'm a bit of an optimist myself. I feel like what's no saying, especially like with the vets and stuff like that. It's a much needed thing. But I mean, there's millions of different things that people do get bullheaded and absolutely just refuse to change on. But that doesn't mean that there's not a chance that there could be something to convince them otherwise. And so, while I think there's a certain amount of, you made your bed, now sleep in it. To me, the mindset of people just getting what they deserve I think I would rather focus on how can I affect the slope of the ground to try to make it more likely that they won't they'll change direction. So maybe I'm just optimistic and naive or whatever, but I'm trying to figure out how to convince people still. I'm still trying to figure out how to work the systems, or adjust systems, or figure out how we should base systems so that the floor is less slanted. They don't have to go as uphill to change.
Uh-huh. I just
Probably
if
a
you want me to respond, oh, Pierce. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I guess the short answer is I don't know.
Mhm.
I feel like I would need to learn more before I could really take a hard stance.
Mm.
I'd say maybe there are certain situations where, in order for to really help somebody, there might be some aspects of force that might be. Wow, my voice got really raspy.
Mhm.
Aspects of force that might be appropriate for their own uh, well-being.
Mhm.
But generally speaking, I would love for them to be helped in a way that is not forceful. I think that'd be more ideal.
Mm. It's my turn to respond, right?
Sure, if you'd like
Um,
to.
yeah. I'd say, and I agree with you too, David. I think that there is something we can do if this is what you meant, something we can do like kind of beforehand, right before they get to that situation. And then it's exactly what I'm trying to talk about is that I think we should do everything we can to not lead them to that situation. I would also agree with Snow that perhaps we can get to a point medically where we can help these people, but I think it really comes down to enforcing things that don't let people get to those points, right? It makes it harder for them to access certain things. I think right now there's a lot of places that just kind of hand them out, right? And these people don't want to get help afterwards, and I think we can do everything to stop it to that point. We can stop giving them access. We can stop we can make these programs more accessible, right, for those who want to seek help, and of course make programs that reach the youth beforehand a lot more accessible as well. But overall I think the last thing we need to do is someone else coming in and forcefully changing someone else's way, or whether it be government, whether it be a group of people, whether it be programs, right? I think at the end of the day there has to be a point where the safety net doesn't reach, right? And I think that's the point where it has to be, when they've they've gone past these programs and they're on the street and they're not willing to get help. And it's even worse when you have perhaps a government that is just allowing easy access to these things.
Mathematic, send me a message after this, laying out some of these positions. I want to think about them a little more.
Okay.
And I think we're at the tail end here, and I'm gonna wrap our call up with this topic. But I do want to say I'm interested in talking about this more with you here soon.
Sure.
I really appreciate
Also,
you coming on. Go ahead.
Yeah, and very interesting screen name.
Probably
Draws the
not.
attention. It draws
Yeah.
the attention in. So
It's Mededic if you can't see it on YouTube.
yeah.
That's a great thing to say on YouTube.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. We'll hopefully talk again.
Yep. See y'all later.
See ya. All right, we got the final caller this time. Hopefully the internet is working better for you this time. Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
We can hear you.
Okay, there's been some serious topics today, so I thought I would end it off with something that's a little different.
Lay it on
right.
us.
My opinion here, and listen, this is very controversial, is does not having a parent make you a better athlete? If you look at some all-time greats, Lance Armstrong, LeBron James, Chad Ochocinco, Ray Lewis, a lot of those people are all-time greats at their sports and at their positions. And they all have one thing in common. No father.
Tons
And
of money.
a lot of them have it, of course, their hard work and their dedication to the sport is a lot of the reason why. But a lot of them openly stated that it gave them the chip on their shoulder that they needed to take their talent and bring them to the next level. So I want to know your opinion on if having no father or no role model in your life makes you a better athlete.
I'd like to give you my opinion, but before we do that,
I would love to hear it.
because I might skew what you're gonna say. We might get into a debate, and we don't do debates here. But I will give my opinion. I absolutely will. I'm wondering, how did you come to your conclusion?
I was watching a documentary on LeBron James, and it went through his struggles of growing. You might have seen it maybe like on TikTok, YouTube. You might have seen the ads for his show that explains his growing up period. And he never knew his father growing up. So instead of that, he reached out to the adults in his life, which were basketball coaches. And I want to know if, since he didn't have, let's say he did have a father, maybe doesn't pick up basketball. So can we credit his legacy to not having a father?
If you came across a list of just absolute goats in sports history who were raised by single fathers, would that affect your position?
No, I'm not just saying single fathers. I'm saying just missing a parent in general make an athlete better. I
what if
use
they were
LeBron James
nuclear?
because he did not have a father.
If there was a list of incredible athletes, and all of them came from a nuclear family, or maybe even, throw a few more in there. Why not? Bunch of caregivers, about 100 of them. Sorry, I get carried away with my hypotheticals. Would this change your position at all? Would you be less confident that great athletes come from single parent households?
We're talking about LeBron James, Ray Lewis, Lance Armstrong, some of the all-time greats. Let me name some more.
One other thing. Lance
Here,
Armstrong.
Michael Orr. Do you know who that is? The Blind Side. Have you ever seen that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Ricky Williams. See, Kevin Durant, an all-time great. Colin Kaepernick, an amazing scorer. Jackie Robinson, Shaquille O'Neal, Luis Suarez. If you don't know, his parents moved him to the Dominican Republic. He's a hometown hero. And Larry Bird. And the list goes on.
So
those are just the top 15 names. There are way more athletes.
Is this important to you because you feel as though you could reverse engineer this to achieve something, or why is it important to you?
This is important because there's a lot of kids out there who grow up without a father, grow up without a mother, and instead of trying to achieve greatness, they succumb to themselves with I don't have a father, I can't amount to anything, I don't have a mother, I can't amount to anything, I'm gonna be a piece of shit, I'm worthless, I don't have a father, I'm nothing, I don't have a father, I'm an orphan, nobody likes me, I'm fat, I'm stupid, I don't have a father. Instead of, becoming a LeBron James, putting that hate towards themselves. Because a lot of people who don't have fathers, they hate themselves.
Yeah, I can imagine there's a lot of misattribution of why things happen when you're a kid, and it gets put on you in a lot of ways. That sounds. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I like that perspective. I like the fact that you're focusing on these people who are hurting and you're offering like
a lot of the times,
a framing device.
Even with personal experience, I'm an athlete myself, and I've seen, people. I've seen great things from people. There's a person I know. He's a 4-star. He's going to Stanford, and he grew up without a father. But then there's also people I know who just hate themselves, and they think they're worthless, and they think they're going to be worth minimum wage, and I don't think there's nothing else for them in life. Instead of putting that, hate and putting that effort and putting that willpower into something like sports or any other aspect of their life, there's a lot of self-loathing that comes with it.
I would tell those people that they need to work hard, and it doesn't matter whether they have one parent or not, that they can succeed no matter what. That's what I would tell them. And I think that as far as like these athletes go, I think that this is more so coincidence. Because you would have to look at when each individual athlete lost the other parent, and how that correlates. So for someone who may be struggling right now, thinking that they're not going to achieve because of the fact that they have one parent, I would tell you, or that person, because you seem kind of upset, I don't know if you feel this way or not, that you have to work hard. And if you work hard,
I'd be the opposite.
if you work hard, you will strive. You will reach success. It has nothing to do with whether you have a parent or not, or two parents.
And focus on the things you're saying. Like, if you feel like you have a lack of support and care, like from your parental people, like you said before, those people, they reached out to coaches, they reached out to you could reach out to community leaders, like find people in your life, fill those holes up. Not everything is biological, like I think we were saying earlier. It's about having a support network. And sometimes I think the search for the support network brings you to new things that you wouldn't have come across if you were just sitting at home living a content life. So maybe there's something to it, maybe not, but interesting perspective. Some random dude, thanks for coming up and chatting. I'm going to
You're welcome. I love you.
We love you too, bud.
Yeah.
All three of you. I've had a very pleasant time here tonight.
Appreciate it. I'm glad to hear that. All right. Well, I think we got to wrap this up so we can. And also with you.
Okay, I'm going to leave now.
Okay.
Okay.
See ya. Yeah.
All right. It was a fun time. Your first show, Snow? Before we play the outro, what are your thoughts? How'd it go?
This was so much fun. I was tested, and I messed up, and I came back around, and I found my jive. And I'm just so thankful that you guys gave me the opportunity to do this. It was great.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't mess your guys' jive up too much.
Oh, I'm jiving all over the place always.
That's what she said.
David's full of jive.
Oh, you got that right.
All right. What's going to happen here is I'm going to post the after show link into the chat and Discord here. And I'm also going to put it for all you YouTube folks out there. So I like to do that before I actually end the stream so you guys have a chance to click on it. Otherwise, it's difficult. So I'm just going to talk for like another second, let you guys click on that link. And then, well, David, you got any last words? I'll let Snow have a last word. I should be fair to you.
No. Have a great night.
Okay. And I'm going to use my catchphrase. Pierce out.